Zimmerman or one of them. I think Zimmerman got that from Brent when he was here.
I've never seen it.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta have that. I gotta have that.
I'll give it to you.
This is part of my community service.
Second, Birdie. I don't work. I work fast.
Do you have any special things like tax exemptions?
Let me look a little bit.
Where would you get that?
I'll get it to you, Kate.
Here. Bauman. Here. Lewis. Gorman. Here. Hanson.
Here.
Hermaning.
He's coming in a little later.
Kaiser.
Here.
Maple. Zebro.
Yes.
Student Rep Macy. All present but Hermaning.
Item 3, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to approval of the agenda, I would seek a motion to approve today's agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Kelly and a second by Mark. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion will carry. Item 5, approval of the minutes. We'll just do 5A, Special Board of Education Policy Meeting, October 22nd, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 22nd, 2019.
Okay, so we have a motion by Kelly, is there a second? And a second by Mike. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry. And then the regular Board of Education meeting, October 22nd.
I'll make a motion to,
Go ahead.
okay, thank you. I'll make a
Okay.
motion to approve the minutes from October 22nd, 2019. Regular meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kelly and a second by Mike. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry. Item 6, the public forum. The public forum provides the public with the opportunity to ask questions about or address issues included on the school board meeting agenda. General operating rules of the public forum will be determined by the board president once the number of people wishing to speak is identified on the night of the meeting. Prior to addressing the board, please clearly state your name and your address and share with the board what agenda item you are speaking to the board on. At this time, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the board? Yes, go ahead, Bernie.
My name is Bernie Kramer, 2150 East State Highway 153, Peplin. Thank you, Ms. President. I would just like to say that I really truly support Mosinee School District, where they're at, what they're doing. And I go back to a survey we held about 3 years ago in between the referendums. And, and it was a very comprehensive survey by the public. It really connects with the school district in terms of support and understanding. And now I want to go to the strategic plan. I had the honor of sitting with the school board president and the superintendent. I think you did that for a reason, but anyhow, I will and going through the process. I mean, I thought we were in a state of crisis. We had all those yellow little tabs on there, and they were tabulating all that up. And I said, my golly, somebody's going to have an awful lot of work to do to go to work and get this district squared away, and thinking that we needed a whole remodeling job here. But I guess I'm going to move on with this here so-called accountability score. Where Mosinee, we're ahead of all the school districts in central Wisconsin. Wausau, Stevens Point, the whole works. And even Menominee too. Even Menominee, we're ahead of Menominee too. But that being said, is this here business here now that we hired this outfit, and they say all students will be career and college ready as measured by ACT and Aspire. But you know, nobody ever talks about these elective courses. And you know, we've got people that go. I've spoke with a person that takes this year industrial arts, 4 years. He's going to go to college. That's going to be his. That's what he's going to do. He's not going to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But I mean, that's how. I said, how can you get 4 years out of the thing? Oh, he said the software is good. He said Brady is okay. He said he helps them out. But anyhow, And then, that being said, oh, agriculture, don't forget about the agriculture. You know, that's the biggest industry in the state of Wisconsin. We passed 1 billion this year. The media paints agriculture, all the farmers are going broke. I mean, just think of all the vegetable crops we grow, the processing plants, and you can go on and on. 400 farmers is a lot in dairy, but I mean, Wisconsin's a very powerful, but to keep that and that, don't throw out that greenhouse either. The last referendum, somebody spoke up and said we should get rid of that thing. But anyhow, the cost of school, Madison, Milwaukee, $15,000 a student for less. Here we get by with 12, which is substantial, $12,000. But I mean, we do better than they do by far. Milwaukee's at the bottom of the pits, always 55 on the score. We're up around 76. Madison, they're struggling down there. They're in a state of crisis. And then now I want to go into another thing here. I really appreciate again the annual report, the update that our technology Brady puts out. I mean, I looked at it again today. And the way he spells it, I wish the academics would be that good. I mean, there's nothing in the annual report for just a local joker like me to just look at. There's nothing there. It's stripped down the last 2 years. I feel really disappointed. And when I look at Brady's, then I look at the budget thing that our new lady here, I mean, I'm just blown away by the detail she goes into. And then now I want to go by one step further. We go through all this stuff. But then again, I think those kids, they all go in a classroom every day and they got a teacher in there. And that's where it all takes place. We can have the greatest superintendent in the world, school board, principals and all that, but by golly, anyhow, that teacher is that's Trump. The teacher is the one that gets the job done. I mean, you can say, they got to be led and they got to be evaluated and they got to do this. Well, that's true to an extent, but bottom line is not all the strategic planning and all this other stuff. But anyhow, what we get done in Mosinee here, I tell you, I'm very satisfied, and I think most people are. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? We will move on. Item 7, special presentation. Discussion, PTO annual donation.
There you go. Brought my helmet. Hi, my name is Amanda Lang. I'm here tonight representing the PTO. I'm both a parent and a teacher in the school district, and I'm also the current secretary of the Mosinee PTO. And with me,
I'm Tracy Hetzel. I am the PTO fundraising coordinator as well as a parent of 2 elementary schoolers.
So tonight the PTO just wanted to recognize some of the things that we're able to do for students in our district. So we provide scholarships for our seniors, supplies for needy students, field trip funding, the 4K through 3rd grade sock hop, and the 4th and 5th grade fun night for kids. And those are just some of our activities. The PTO fundraiser is the biggest impact for students and opportunities for students in our district, and we really thank Tracy for taking on that fundraising lead, because that is some job. On behalf of the PTO, we're here tonight to present a check for the amount of $18,000 for students in our school district for enrichment opportunities.
You can take it.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a good spot, Dan.
PTO records.
PTO records.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to thank the PTO, aside from the wonderful donation, we also borrowed their norms for our strategic plan with permission. So I emailed over, they had set up these new norms and went through this whole process. So we actually used those on our kickoff with the strategic plan. So also thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Again, thank you very much.
I just want to make sure I understand. PTO dollars were used for Mosinee last year, is that correct? So I think it's important that when we look at a check that shows up like that, like the impact that it can have on our kids and give our administrators, and how appreciative I am that cool things and opportunities exist for our kids, but there's not always a budget to do it. And when the time comes to say, how are you gonna pay for that? It seems like, well, we have PTO money that exists to be able to do that, and that really changes the culture and the environment for our kids, so thank you very much.
Student board member report.
Well, the recent report that was sent in has been updated. The school recently got phone and Chromebook chargers and a cafeteria for students to utilize. The FCCLA Club sold scarves yesterday for the craft sale on December 7th, and they're going for the women's shelter. DECA recently had their annual dodgeball tournament. There was huge student involvement. They had over 10 teams, raised over $200, which will be donated, but they haven't decided which organization to donate to yet.
You know who won that?
Old people?
Yeah.
Still beating the young ones. I couldn't throw the next day, but
Yeah, I heard about some injuries.
thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. If you don't mind, I have to go early tonight.
No, that's fine. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 9, consent agenda, personnel committee consent agenda.
Okay, personnel committee tonight, it was just myself and Amy Bowman present for that. And for current job vacancies in the district, we have a summer school administrator and coordinator position, as well as the general education temporary assistant, which we have 2 applicants for. We also have had the discussion of possible recommendation to request a new activity on Appendix G. So this was a position, PBIS Student Council at the elementary school that was already in the pipeline, so to speak. So this is going to be an additional cost of $1,000, and it is in the budget for that. So being that was already in the works, even though we're going to have further discussion later in our overall agenda to reevaluate some of the clubs and the way that process will go forward, we unanimously chose to approve that position. Discussion of possible recommendation of employee handbook revision for unpaid leave. This is basically just bringing us up, the school district up to par with what other school districts are doing. So employees can request up to 5 days without pay for special circumstances. Through the HR director, once they have used all of their other PTO and have a qualified substitute for that position. So that was key in making that change. So the personnel committee unanimously approved that as well. Discussion and possible recommendation of employee insurance report. That was more of an update this month. We are going and getting bids and looking at ways to be more economical next year for the overall insurance, employee insurance benefits. Discussion and possible recommendation substitute teacher report for teacher meetings and increase sub-pay. So I'll try to give a bit of an overview, and maybe Superintendent Munoz may chime in if necessary. So what the proposal was is to increase the rates to $120 per day. We are currently at $110 per day. So you'll see in your packet that there are some comparables through other school districts, and we're trying to certainly remain competitive. The fill rate, I want to say, was in the 60s, is that correct?
In the 80s.
80s,
It's been
okay.
in the 80s for a couple of days. We're projected, which isn't good. And next week, we're projected to maybe even drop below the 80% fill rate. So this is an attempt to draw back some of our subs. We're tending to have sub problems on an everyday or every other day basis. And it's just something we have to try to do the best we can. We can't get to Everest money with subs. I'm not recommending that. You can see all that comparable information in there.
So while we went ahead and made a decision on this, there is going to certainly be further discussion in the overall sub-budget. But at this time, the Personnel Committee chose to support this proposed pay increase contingent upon the fact that the overall budget will be at least equal, if not less, to what we currently are at. So David has a definite goal of reducing that overall budget.
It'll be an increase that we're prepared to have at the 120, at the rate of 120 and the dollars that are listed there. But the overall discussion about sub-pay, and I just want to be clear, I was in personnel, and just to be clear in the general meeting, that if a teacher is sick or they have a sick child, I want to make sure to support that at the highest level possible. And my concern isn't that at all. That's not what we're talking about at all. But if teachers are receiving subs for meetings, and that's restricting our access to subs for teachers that are sick, that we've already bumped into that problem multiple times this year. So that's something that we're looking to reduce and get a handle on. Also, when I started, or before I started, the board asked me to look into this specifically. And this detailed report that you have is meant to be, this is it. This is the resolution, but it's quite a bit larger an issue than I was initially told. So this is everything that I have right now, and that part is information that we'll come back to in December, and also my intent is to come back to it again as we move into staffing.
Can I ask a quick question on that? So, did we have a reduction in the number of substitutes? Did we have people walk away from subbing for us this year? That is, or is this a problem we've had here?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think what the sub-pay increase at Everest is new. That's within the last 6 months, something like that. So, you know, sub-teachers are contractors. They're essentially independent contractors. And they go as far as Merrill, some go as far as Stevens Point, we've been finding. So we looked into this extensively. We even looked at companies that do this. And this is where we came up with 120. We looked at a company that wanted to charge us 28% on top of our daily rate, which would have put us at 140 or 145 actual, and then take full responsibility for it. So we looked into this extensively, and it really has to do with our fill rates and us wanting to see what this does to improving our fill rates, specifically and especially for teachers that are sick or that are taking care of their sick children.
Right, I'm just wondering if we had, I'm gonna make up a number for easy, if we had 100 substitute teachers that were on our list last year that we might be able to call, if now our list is only 80, did we call them and say, why are you not willing to sub for us? Because I suspect, I don't know if we have a reduced number, that for some of them, there might be environmental or cultural issues going on within the school that, when we did our climate and culture survey, we saw components of our school that felt like they were either underappreciated or some of their needs weren't being met. And I'm wondering whether, generally speaking, you don't find the difference between $10 a day to necessarily always make the difference for someone to drive to Merrill from Mosinee if they could sub in Mosinee, unless, I'm just wondering what those issues are and if there's things we can do to positively impact outside of mine. I think it's a reasonable amount.
We'll look into it, and I'll come back in December with an answer to that. I don't have that answer today.
Any other questions? Okay. Item, discussion of possible recommendation for additional resignations, retirees, or hires. We don't have any resignations or retirees, however, we did make the motion to approve the new food services director, which will be Haley Harmon. And that's going to be at a salary of $56,000, and Alyssa Havda, our outgoing director, is going to be here for a transitional handover to assist her as well. And then our final item is new extracurricular hires, and we had three high school basketball vacancies that we filled as well. And that is the conclusion of my report.
How long is she gonna stay with
There's just going to be, I think, a week or two overlap.
There's a
Okay.
couple week overlap, which she had already agreed to, and we're very appreciative of.
Stay how long she's been there.
Thank you. Finance, Matt.
Finance committee met for a half hour. We approved our minutes from our previous finance committee meeting. We had a really robust discussion about, we were presented with it's not quarterly, it's every 4 months we receive a bill from the YMCA's So we received a bill, our most current one is for approximately $50,000 for 4 months of services from the YMCA. It's broke down a little bit. We had some conversations about what we get for the money in that bill. I think it's reasonable looking at that amount of money for us, which is what we asked the administration was in the room, is as we delve into dealing with the YMCA and how much we partner with them and what we get for those dollars, to look at if there's a more effective or efficient way at this point in time for us to run the pool for less than $150,000 a year. And we're excited to see what comes back as far as options or opportunities for us, because if we look down into the next item, the needs assessment for and comparables for both the pool and the auditorium, as we look at maybe 6 years out on anticipated repairs and improvements that need to be made in those facilities, it's roughly $1 million worth of expenses. So you will be receiving in the next month or prior to the next meeting, where we'll have an agenda item, materials that we were presented tonight, which I was so incredibly impressed with the work Brady and Steve did, right? To put together a list of all the things that are gonna need to be repaired, what the expected lifespan of them is, how old they are, what a ballpark number that we will not hold you to, Brady, for what we're guessing after speaking to contractors, what that's gonna cost. That allows us as a board to, number one, assess Fund 80 and how we're utilizing it and how we might be able to pay for some of these repairs out of have the community pay for them out of Fund 80. Create a budget for Brady and Steve to be able to plan for these repairs and anticipate them, as opposed to every time something breaks coming back to us saying, hey, can we fix this? But it also gives us the opportunity to prioritize all the issues that are forecasted within those. Some of them are going to be high on the priorities. When the wall is separating from the floor and it's cracking all the tiles, that's probably higher on the priority list than other things. So this is what we asked for, and this makes a whole lot more sense for us to be fully informed about what those issues are. That's going to be one component. The second component is how can Fund 80 and us really look at how we're using Fund 80 compared to many other schools. And I just wanted to give some examples that in 2019, the Mosinee School District billed Fund 80 $125,000, or billed the community for these things. The Rhinelander School District billed their community $480,000, where we're a little bit comparable in the schools. So there are schools like Shorewood that billed Fund 80 $1.3 million. So there's a lot of information that's going to be provided. It's going to be a pretty thorough and robust discussion, and we're just really excited to see this material put together and appreciate it.
Yeah, my intent with this is this to be the first discussion piece. You know, there was nothing to essentially vote on. We'll have more discussion, so this will be digitalized for all board members in December. But then we'll have a little bit further discussion about Fund 80 and other things that we've discovered already inside of Fund 80. So we're ready actually to take this to the next step in December with discussion before we start forming decisions, which I think should become pretty evident as we move forward.
So things to look forward to. We were darn near out of time. We were given a summary of all the significant vouchers that went. We had no significant issues with that. And with that being said, I will entertain a motion to approve the monthly voucher list.
Well, when it comes later.
Oh, sorry, I screw that up every meeting.
I know, you're getting, it's all right, you're coming up. So we gotta go to the curriculum first, and then we go to that, because it's a roll call. So curriculum, thank you.
The treasurer's report, same thing. Now we can move forward, right?
The
It's on the list.
treasurer's report is separate.
10 and 11.
Well, then why is it under consent agenda?
It's actually, we pulled it out. We started that way, that's it. We did do that one time.
You can just yell at me every month.
No, that's okay. We changed that. So the board members wanted the voucher list and the treasurer's report pulled out separately.
Because they're roll call.
Right, we just shouldn't have under consent agenda.
Oh, I see those things. Okay. Okay, so curriculum and standards committee. Julie?
Sure.
We did not have a board rep this evening at the meeting, but we just gave there were 2 extended field trips that were recommended for approval that we went through, as well as the bulk of the meeting was regarding information about our state report card scores. And that, in summary, all 3 of the buildings, as well as our overall district score, were in the exceeds expectations range. And we talked about some of the initiatives and things we are doing to support some of the gaps and areas that we are still working on and enhancing.
What was our score last year? Was it exceeds expectations
Yes.
as well?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now, I'm looking for a motion to approve all 3 consent agenda items.
So moved.
I'll second it. Okay, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Kelly. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion will carry. Item 10, discussion and possible decision on monthly vouchers.
Oh, I'll just make a motion to approve the voucher.
Second.
Very good. Okay. So there's a motion by Matt and a second by Peter. Roll call, please.
Barnes,
Aye.
Bauman,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Gorman,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Zebro.
Yes.
All yes.
Item 11, discussion and possible decision on the approval of the monthly treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Matt and a second by Mike. Roll call, please.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Zebro,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes.
All yes.
Next item, discussion, school board superintendent communications.
Yes, I have several things in there. One, school board election information. Just December 1st, early date for circulation of nomination papers. And this is for December 27th, 5 p.m. deadline for incumbents to file notice of non-candidacy. So December 27th at 5 p.m. Just as a heads up, January 7th at 5 p.m. deadline for candidates to file all documents needed to appear on the ballot. So we'll be into that. The primary election, if needed, will be February 18th. And the spring election will be April 7th for those positions. Second point there was about CBD. Actually, just had some new information about this today, but I put quite a bit of research into that just based on past discussions when it came up in policy. So I have a bunch of information in there. I have detailed information about CBD and how it works. It has a lot to do with some complications with determining what CBD is 0.3 and what isn't. I was just made aware of an actual test kit related to this. This is very new that we'll be looking into. So it was new information. It's really good. We'll be jumping into that a little bit more. Other things, the compensation committee met with several board members, so we had several board members there. Actually, it's been a lot of Appendix G discussions. So my 30,000-foot view, it was very good. We had comparables for coaches in terms of pay, and several of the coaches present were very interested to see the comparables, and several of them said they didn't realize that we were paid so very well. So, and I think we do, so we have some work to do definitely in there, but I put some information there about CPI. That was a big thing that was a surprise, I think, to several board members and also to several teachers. That CPI increases are happening inside of Appendix G on a rolling basis and a continuing basis. That's relatively uncommon, so it's something that we're going to have to look at and make sure that we just keep an eye on, in terms of that. But that's more to do with the committee meeting that we'll be having, I believe, in January, just if memory serves. I have a note in there about my communication about the education, the state education convention. And I know that just about all the board members will be attending in some capacity, which is great. So we can talk more about that as we get to that. So we have rooms booked, and we're good to go. So with sessions, and we'll work more on that, the details of dinner and all these sorts of things as we get closer. Had Bruce Jambros from the city come to the high school. He actually had a filming piece with Matt Lindsay that was actually for the city's website, kind of update the connection between the cities and the schools, which I just want to reiterate. I've said it before, it's very healthy, and we wanted to continue to stay that healthy, which is great. And Bruce also sat on the strategic planning committee as well. Strategic planning process, it actually was great. We had close to 70 people at strategic planning. I know several people that are in this room today were there, including Bernie, thank you. We're at my table, and it was a great event, actually. So we did a lot of yellow sticky notes, a lot of information from the community. And we have already collated all that information. Thank you, Amy, for getting all of those themes and information together. So we're kind of ready for that second meeting, or getting close to ready for that second meeting. But we're excited about it. I think it was a great first night. It was a great turnout, and some wonderful discussion. Thank you to Mr. Kaiser specifically. Mr. Kaiser, thank you for being at the Veterans Day Assembly. You did a great job. I think that was a good job there, Mr. Groovy, at the Veterans Day Assembly at the middle school. I thought it was the right tone. I mean, I was there, and it was well done. So Mr. Kaiser walked right up to the front with, I think it was the rest of VFW, part of the VFW, right, Mr. Kaiser?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Legion.
So, so it was great to have a school board member there who's also a veteran. So that was a wonderful event. So, and distinguished alumni is something that I'm going to be taking the lead on. So I'll be getting some information out about a program to start a distinguished alumni award. All right, it's something that I've done in a previous district, so I'm familiar with the process and what we would like it to look like. But we definitely need alumni. I know I have one on the committee already, Mr. Kaiser, and then I'll look for I'll look for more as the days and weeks move forward. In terms of establishing a committee of alumni and then getting some criteria in place, I have some recommendations for criteria, so I'm pretty excited about it. That's what I have. Aside from that, I was able to teach a class last week, I think 5 or 6 sections at the high school. It was a lot of fun, about business ethics. It was a great deal of fun, so that's always great to do. And I just want to say to the school board members here and to everybody present, Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Same to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, item 13, old business, discussion greenhouse and school forest update.
Yeah, there's some detailed information in here about the school forest, and I'm not going to go over it word for word, but I did reach out about it. There is quite a bit of use of both of these facilities. I know we had put some dollars into that recently, and I think I was out there. I was actually with, it was the elementary school. I went out with, I forget what grade, 3rd grade, thank you, Ms. Caldwell. I was out with the 3rd grade. I went out there, and I know they were worried when I got there because the students weren't in the facility. So I said, well, I can go find them. I was an old Boy Scout, so I can hear them, you know, because there's trails that run out, and then there's this water over there. So I started walking like the back way, and I know they were texting each other. They told me this, that the superintendent's coming, make sure he doesn't get lost, and I didn't get lost. I didn't fall or anything, so it was great. So I was out there for that event. I know they had a nighttime event as well. That's kind of listed in the script up, but I was very impressed, and we put some work. Steve is on vacation, but there's been recent work, as recently as last week. They were just finishing up some upgrades to the school forest, and substantial upgrades. I already thought it was in very good shape, to be quite honest, but the upgrades that are going in were, you know, wrapping, re-siding, shingles, I mean, detailed upgrades to what I think was already a very good facility. So I was excited about it when I was out there, as well as greenhouse and everything that's in there. So just wanted to make you aware of that. If you have any questions.
When I look through the greenhouse and I see that there are things that are done, just help me if I'm understanding Fund 80 correctly.
Right.
If the greenhouse is being used partially for community projects and growing the petunias,
Yep.
the hanging baskets, am I interpreting how Fund 80 might be utilized where we can build the community for some of the expense in operating the greenhouse through Fund 80 because it's a community-based program, or am I not viewing Fund 80 correctly?
You are, but it's a little more yeah, you're going around the right path, but we've had a lot of discussions, I mean, Brady, myself, Michelle, several of us about Fund 80, and talked to other districts, and I'll give you the long and short of it. I think one of the problems in the Mosinee School District is they're just looking at time usage, Whereas we need to look at the 24-hour clock.
No, we went through that. I'm
Right.
just looking when, over the next month or two, as we have conversations about funding, we talk about different projects we're doing. Are we out of bounds to start looking at how does that impact the community and what's the use of the community in that to receive some funding to be able?
I think we're in bounds as long as there's an established dollar amount that we can reverse bill so that we can establish a number for the state and our auditors. For the state, the DPI specifically, and then our auditors to make sure that we're in compliance with very complicated rules. Because people do get in a lot of trouble, there's some public, with Fund 80 usage and these sorts of things. So I think we know exactly who to talk to and how to approach it. And today, in the Finance Committee was always meant to be, okay, this is an eye-opener.
Yeah, my eyes are open. I'm like,
The
let's bill them.
it's an eye-opener to start, and the YMCA piece of it is an interesting piece, especially considering, decisions that are made for decades actually with the YMCA. And even decisions this board made 3 and 4 years ago not to do any billing in Fund 80. In other words, going to $0 in Fund 80. So you're going along the right lines, but we're going to do this the right way and make sure that when we get reimbursed from Fund 80 into Fund 10, that's how, and that's the correct way to go
We
about
would like to keep you out of prison.
it. Exactly, yeah. Thank
If
you.
they show up, I'm going.
No, we're gonna be double checking. Michelle and I have had good conversations about this, that we would be checking it with the state at the same time, or around the same time that we're checking it with our auditors. So we're gonna be clearing these things before doing them, and the people that have made mistakes in the state aren't doing that. They're just saying, oh, yeah, send this money out of, you can take it out of that checking account. Well, that's not how that works exactly. So,
Well, and one of the things I would like to see more of is especially the money we spend in the greenhouse.
Right.
Can we use some of this for like more classroom instruction and even like some of our foods classes? I see the raised vegetable gardens, can we use some of those in prepping and even having community members coming in and helping them to teach how to create and do raised flower beds, gardens, etc.
that's a great question, and based on the work that we have put in, and it's been work at, Brady and Steve, and then Michelle with the money work, and mine with calling different districts, my answer to that is we can do it, we just want to set up the right step-by-step process for us to be reimbursed from Fund 8 to Fund 10.
I think what
Yes.
Diane's talking about is getting community members to be more engaged with our kids as a classroom,
Oh.
not necessarily.
Instruction
the
time, I mean, when we donated those raised vegetable gardens, just the 2, I mean, they were ecstatic. And I'm like, if they can come in and help do this and get a lot more use out of this, now that its updates, let's do that. Or even, teaching, we've talked about it years ago about, even making around the school look nicer with planting and not just grass and trees. So,
I think we do need to beautify the exterior of the building.
because when it looks nice outside, they think it looks nice.
We just need another summer school class of planting flowers, right?
We'll have some suggestions going forward in the next couple of months about that, specifically that sort of thing.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
I just think any that's very involved in these projects is what's going to bring the community together for future items.
Correct. Exactly. Okay, item B, discussion and possible decision. Policy 6235, the fund balance revision.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
Yeah, in this particular document, this is something we've brought up a few times since Neola was here. So I've made the adjustments to this. That was my understanding that the vast majority of the board was looking to be made.
And anything that's in red that was previously in there is stricken out.
Stricken out, right?
Okay, and everything new is in green.
Yes.
Okay. I know, of course Kevin's not here, we come back to it.
Let's come back to it when Kevin comes.
How come yours is all 7:45?
Oh, okay, so it's 6:45, right? Okay, all right, well.
I would so move.
Okay, we can always bring it back if he has questions. Okay, so we have a motion by Mike, is there a second? And a second by Amy, further discussion.
I think 25 to 30% is still way high. I'd like to see it at 20% and be able to utilize more of that funding to be able to be put into additional funds for future capital projects and things to be able to offset and get more reimbursement from the state for spending that money. I know we went round and round, and I'm not sure, my recollection was we didn't like settle on 30% or 25%. And when I looked at the other schools and where they're at and functioning very well, they did it with significantly less than 25 to 30% fund balance. And those are the dollars that exist for us to do a lot of the things that we want to get done. And if it's tied up in fund balance, doing nothing for us, as opposed to put into, maybe I'll misquote this, Fund 46, that we can use to do some of these significant improvements to our school. I just think that's a better way to use that resource than just letting it sit in fund balance.
I think I can just have Michelle weigh in a little bit about, you did a review and a study about what was the low point we could go in order to keep cash flow,
Yeah, I
make
don't have,
payroll.
right, that's correct. I don't have it in front of me. I know 25% in my estimate, if we were at a 25% fund balance. We would be at a low possibly of, I think it was 175, 3,000 one month. It would be our balance. And to me, that's kind of low. We're losing investment opportunities, and if a large expenditure came up in that month, we'd be short. That's my concern, of going below that 25%.
So
And it really depends on, what month we're in.
So from a school finance perspective, every district based on size is a little bit different based
That's
on,
correct.
some districts choose to borrow to make payroll and then use that money for short-term investments or whatever. There's reasons why. Some people do short-term borrowing. That's something that it was our understanding and our approach to this, that setting this up is eliminating that, the need for short-term borrowing.
Well, my opinion's changed a little bit when you give me that number. I don't think we had that before.
We discussed it once at the financial, we had the different percentages, and I think like
There was a hand.
Because I'm looking on the last agenda and board book, and I don't see
I
that.
think it was the meeting before.
right.
September?
Somebody was in Idaho.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It was definitely part of Michelle's and my discussion, that I wanted to make sure that we had a document in front of the board about a cash flow.
Yeah, I think it was called cash flow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a cash flow document, that if we're gonna borrow to make payroll, I discourage that.
I don't want us to.
Okay, so
If we had a major expense, let's say a boiler or something,
yes,
that could come out of here also, right?
right, yes, there would be reasons to borrow to make payroll.
But keep in mind, if we're funding Fund 46 robustly and put the money in there, to replace a boiler would come out of Fund 46.
Yes.
Or could, it doesn't have to come out of Fund 10.
Right.
So,
That's correct.
major issues structurally or within our facilities, we would start to be paying for those things out of a different fund, not out of Fund 10.
That's gone, then we could take it out of here,
That
right?
is true.
Right.
I mean, better out of here than borrowing, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it, but.
So, yeah,
Right, I mean, ideally, we would fund Fund 46 at a level that the money's in there to be used. And because everything we take out of Fund 10 and put into Fund 46, we get, what's it called from the state where
we get reimbursement. It's as if we spent it, so the state's gonna give us state reimbursements as if we spent it, even if we don't and we let it sit there.
It's a giant con, we get to say we spent it by putting it in a savings account.
Well, it's the equivalent of a rainy day fund.
Yeah, you call it rainy day.
Okay.
Okay, so
For capital improvements specifically.
we do have a motion and a second, any other discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry. Item C, discussion and possible decision, second reading of policy 6630, cash handling and deposits.
This is pretty straightforward and was recommended by Neola. It's just not something that we had, so we had to go through 2 meetings.
I'll make the motion to accept the, second reading of the cash handling.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kelly and a second by Jessica. Further discussion?
I would have a question on item E. When a person leaves the employment, how many people know of the safe combination?
And can it be changed?
Yeah, it's a limited number of staff. For example, I don't know any of them for various.
That was gonna be my question is, our safe, I don't think you can change that. I mean, it's gonna cost quite a bit of money. We have a big old safe with a huge.
Yeah, we do.
Like I said, this is pretty standard operating procedure. If a staff member knows to come to the safe and they choose to go to work somewhere else, we're gonna have to make a change. Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions?
I just have a clarification for paragraph 3. It says whenever possible, that last sentence says whenever possible, cash shall be counted and cross-checked by 2 persons. And then on B, it says 2 or more people should be. So it doesn't have to be, it just should be.
Absolutely, the verbiage is used that way and recommended by Neola. This is a Neola certified policy because the best practice is 2 people always cross-checking cash.
But I get what he's saying, one says should and the other says shall. Shall means you have to, should means.
And if we're gonna make a change to a Neola policy that they're certifying, we need to go to Neola and put this on our next policy review, which we can do, and then talk to Neola directly about those adjustments.
Where is the shall you're talking about?
Can be.
B.
No, the shall is in the 3rd paragraph. The 2nd sentence of the 3rd paragraph.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, but then it clarifies in the next sentence, whenever possible. So the words whenever possible don't mean always.
Yeah, there's only one person there.
I mean, I don't know that I would wanna be in any institution where you're handling significant cash and you're like the only person with that. I think we're setting up employees for issues with that. And, my concern is I think this should come back because if the expense is $10,000 for a new safe in the high school because the policy says we're gonna change the combination and it's not changeable, like that might impact our decision on this. So it doesn't hurt anything to come back next month, right?
I think Neola is January.
Right, well, it says should always be changed, again, it's
And-
not absolutely has to be
Right,
changed.
but our policy should support
Right.
what we actually plan on doing.
I'm telling you that if a staff member knows a comm and they leave the district, we're going to change the safe. We're gonna change the
So
comm.
maybe that's what
I
you're
don't-
getting, and how many people will see.
Absolutely.
Well, we need to buy a new safe.
Yeah. Exactly.
Get them a lighter one.
We buy a small one.
From a fiscal perspective.
So we can bring it back at another time
Yes.
to review it. So, okay, we will put it for a future agenda.
Yes.
Okay, so as of right now, we're just gonna approve the second reading as is. Any other further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so 2, and motion will still carry. And item D, discussion and possible decision, policy 8390, animals on district property revision.
Yeah, we put quite a bit of work into this, meaning the high school staff put quite a bit of work into this. We looked at, the first thing that I did is I looked at about 7 or 8 different districts. So I talked to a lot of the PAC superintendents, so the superintendents in our region. We got a lot of feedback, actually there's quite a few policies out there. So we had a lot of examples to look at. This is a result of all of that work, so Mr. Lehman and
Christie?
probably Christie put quite a bit of work into that. And I think this clearly is and it's an adjustment to an existing policy, but it delineates, and aside from going through word by word, essentially what it does, it establishes the difference between the type of animals, but also criteria if XYZ student or parent says, my dog's a therapy dog. Well, let's be clear about what that is. Let's be clear about service animal. So what this does is it establishes those criteria, which is important to do. So when I started looking around and talking to other districts, many of them were doing a lot of different variations. So what we did is I brought together the information, went to Mr. Lehman and Christie and said, okay, here's everything you need, come back with some, and they did a great job, and this is the result of that.
We also met with our trainer too. She
Right.
made some recommendations, and that's where a lot of the green came in. Just making sure not any animal can come into our schools. We want to make sure it's very difficult to have an animal on the school grounds.
Right.
I have a question. Will there be a document that, quote, unquote, contract that the handler will sign, that they have to attach their certificate of insurance?
You know, I've seen things like that. That was actually in a lot of the literature that we were receiving. It was a hodgepodge of it was a wealth of information. So I think the first step was to establish the policy, and then next, you know, this clearly delineates the process for the policy we should follow. There's systems that we can put in place, like worksheets and things like that, but that's a reasonable request.
No, this is a Neola.
It actually is not, to be
This
clear.
one isn't.
Well, it's got our.
It's this is a Neola policy that we're largely rewriting. So to be very clear, Neola does not sign off on this, and they wanted to make that very clear when he was here in person, that they don't have any policy that they sign off on, but this is a amalgamation or put together of a lot of other districts' policies and information.
So at the end, it has Neola on it.
Yeah, because it's an existing policy from 2000. Yeah, you're right.
It's in their system, but we got rid of the miniature horses?
Yeah,
We
I'm not a
did.
fan of miniature horses.
Hey now.
We actually talked about that at my conference.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some districts.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I would need a motion to approve.
I'll make a
Good for
motion to
that.
approve the policy on animals on district property.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Kelly and a second by Amy. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry. 14, new business, discussion, overall staffing report.
I wanted to start this out, and thank you to Michelle and Elise for putting a lot into this. I know there was other people involved, but what this document is, this is something that when you look at this particular document, this is a very common document for like an annual meeting. So this is something that the board is going to start to see now on a pretty regular basis. I wanted to bring it up in this perspective, this particular page here. These are overall numbers for the budget. Fund 10, Fund 27, and Fund 50. So percents of wages, benefits, and wages and benefits are a really big part of the pie, which is common in other districts, right? This is a common sort of slide for other districts to look at, and us as well. But it's not something that I've seen in an annual report here, but it's something that'll be in from this point forward. So to start a staffing discussion like this is important, because when you see the next slide, which we'll get to in a second, so when the board looks at this, the gray up here, this has to do with essentially operations, which is pretty standard. It's pretty normal in school districts, right? That your operations is a pretty small chunk of the pie. And we're in a people business, it's what we do. So this isn't uncommon at all, okay?
That is the pool.
I'm sorry.
How much of that is the pool?
Oh, the
You know?
pool. We could get that. This is
I'd like to know.
exactly,
I'd like to know.
we can absolutely get that. And this is exactly how that question comes up. Like, because the pool stuff in Fund 80, if we jump to the next slide, which is rolled up there, thank you, Brady. this actually gets into the breakdown a little bit more. So we can do that. So essentially this pie chart is the part of staffing. So then we broke it out by all the different areas. So this is just staff, right? This is just the staff breakout. And it's important to see because the percentages, as we're looking at it, we want to look at different percentages over time. So instead of looking at, you know, here's where we're at with these percentages going forward, this is a pretty common document in other districts as well. I keep saying because we can see percentages of how we're spending and how we go into recommendations going forward, whatever they are. And the big thing about like fund balance and us being 34% fund balance is you don't go to fund balance for something like this, right? The key with the first slide and the second slide, this is built into a regular budget cycle, not fund balance, right? That's a really important piece to these two slides. That when you're gonna stay fiscally responsible, this board has done an excellent job doing, you need to stay in your regular budget cycle with how you can do this. So we've already made decisions, you've already made decisions as a board, with me as your superintendent, over $100,000 into housekeeping, for example. That's a push into this. You can see that right over here. Like the decisions that we made about housekeeping, going to every other day housekeeping, that was an additional $130,000, $140,000 a year, every year. So that part of the pie you can see right over there, right? So it's important to, when you make those decisions, we want to make sure to see it like this, so we're keeping that 20,000-foot view of the decision-making. Administrators, all the different subgroups. Tomorrow I'm meeting with support staff, so I'm excited to be able to meet with all the support staff in the district tomorrow at 3:30 to start a little bit of a discussion of that. So I wanted to make sure that this was out there. We'll be coming back to this as we start moving into further staffing discussions. And you know, even actually today, we'll have some discussions about 4K today, but no decisions to be made, you know, for several months. But that sort of thing, you know, when we start the 4K discussion today, there's no recommendations for staffing increases. I want to be clear, right? But there will be some recommendations in the future with 4K, but we don't believe there's going to be any staffing changes in that, okay? So as we're looking at staffing and moving into staffing, I wanted to start with this, and then in future months, in December, we'll get more specific. We'll get more specific and more detailed, and get you that answer about the breakout of how much of the pool percentage in that. It's a fair question.
Item B, discussion possible decision process for new clubs and activities.
Yeah, this developed out of the compensation committee meeting. We were talking about Appendix G. And this is something that it's pretty straightforward, that I know from that meeting, that Appendix G meeting, there were some things that those in that committee didn't want to be making decisions about in that meeting, right? There were other things that we wanted to be talking about. But this is something that I'd like to put into an administrative rule with your support. So it's not policy or anything else like that, but essentially what this means is that I am very open to new clubs and new activities, but they got to be approved by the board, right? They have to be approved by the board. That's written in this rule. And then also, if we're going to add something that we look at, is there, you know, where's the additional money? The money that's built into Appendix G is about $580,000. I might be off by 10,000 with that. But it's about $580,000 in Appendix G. So if we're going to continually adding clubs when we're not looking at reducing them, then we're just increasing Appendix G. Okay? So my advocation is, yeah, we could have new clubs and so going forward following this rule, which is pretty straightforward. And we'll add things, but we have to look for efficiencies and just can't add forever.
Okay, so I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Jessica and a second by Peter. Further discussion.
Yeah, just one thing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree that before it comes to us, you have to bring us a reduction somewhere else. I mean, there could be a new club and it doesn't justify reducing a different club, and I think we as a board would want to make that decision based on, is it worth additional on $10 being spent to have that opportunity for our kids and not necessarily reduce an opportunity for kids somewhere else.
Yeah, I've written it that way, I was ready for that. So I wrote it, the building administration has been given a general guideline that youth clubs and activities will only be considered if possession. So it's a general guideline, I'm open to that. That it's not a policy.
Okay.
This isn't a policy that needs to be adhered to. I'm totally open to bringing youth clubs with the understanding, I want to keep the pie chart in mind, because the more we keep pushing that out, especially with right now it increasing at CPI, we potentially are reducing money that's available to increase everybody's salaries in the district. So I just want to be conscious that we're talking about the same pot of money.
But you got this, and how you're gonna go against what you've got written, I don't understand.
Well, certainly
It's a general guideline.
Yeah, it's not a policy.
Yeah.
Which
The
ones are
general
gonna follow, which
guideline
ones
and
aren't you?
only be considered are kind of in conflict with each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
It's,
We have to
I
start
think
it should be
somewhere.
written.
I'm fine to bring it forward. I have no problem with that. All right?
Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye.
Motion will carry with 2 noes. Did you catch those, Amy? Okay. Okay. Item C, discussion half-day 4K.
All right, and just notice that there's no decision on this, but some very good information. So I would like to,
Would you like me to walk up in front?
that would be great. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. So this presentation, do you have the clicker?
Nope.
Sorry. I do have with me Amy Kerntop, Heather Trachty, Casey Negotiated, and Mary Zimmerman. We all kind of work on 4K together. This presentation you saw last spring. So Brady, if you want to click through it, a lot of it is just the history of our 4K, like our staff, our directors, the history, which again you've seen. So if we go, just kind of scroll slowly, Brady, through until slide 11, which we shared some information. We adopted a big day for 4K curriculum 2 years ago. Some of the themes that we focus on throughout the year: ready for school, my family, my community. All of the sites, this is kind of their theme guideline. DPI requirements for our outreach program, they have to have 87.5 hours of family outreach. Some of that is done during the school day, others is during evenings. We do, if you keep going, 4 outreach activity, or 3, sorry, at the elementary school, Big Night for Big Day, which we've already had. The Gingerbread Man on the Loose is coming up in December, and then 4K Small Ball is always held in the spring. Things that we do as a district to involve ourselves with the community 4K sites, so we sponsor 2 field trips every year, directors meetings. Katie Craig, our team leader for 4K, does teacher meetings every month. We provide curriculum and training, CPI training for staff if they want to, that's optional, state aid for pupil, and you can see some of the other things. This is really what we want to focus on tonight, the benefits, just for discussion for you guys to start thinking about going to half days. So we just kind of bulleted some key things developmentally appropriate for our 4-year-olds. So if you think about it, they have more opportunity if they come every day for a half a day to review the skills taught. The second one, it's routine for them. So right now they come, like if you're a Monday, Wednesday student, you come Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this semester, but next spring you only come Monday and Wednesday. So if I come Monday, Wednesday, but I'm sick on Wednesday, I really don't get to go back to school till the following Monday in the spring. So what these ladies are teaching, like they have to basically reteach a lot of that curriculum to the students because they don't get to see them every day. Time spent in school is more instructional. So in the afternoon, if you go visit some of our 4K sites, they're little, they're babies, so they rest. Mrs. Trachty, like approximately how long would you say some of your kiddos, like half hour to?
So our rest time is half an hour, but if they fall asleep, I let them keep sleeping. I'm not just gonna be like, oh, you have to wake up. So they are missing then their center time, which is their curriculum. So then they're missing some of that. So they sleep up to an hour in our site.
And they should, because they're little, and they need naps. So that half day, going to half day would eliminate that rest time and that extra recess. Keeping our district students in district, a lot of families want the half day for their students. So they look at Everest, they look at WASA, they look at other districts that offer that 4K at a half day.
That last slide, if you go back one slide, sorry. That bottom bullet here was something we bumped into with numbers this year. The 22 4K students, those are Mosinee District 4K students, open enroll, out. And that was a huge number. When you look at outliers, those are just our numbers. Those are families that live here that are choosing to go somewhere else in the 4K realm.
To give you some
Maybe that's where they
perspective,
work or something, you never know.
our classes range from about 140 to 160 kids a grade level right now. So you're talking one eighth of the class is open enrollment.
And there's varying reasons for that.
Yeah,
right?
Not all are because
There's varying reasons for that. But I've talked to some of the parents, and some of it is definitely this reason.
More services are provided for our special education students. So for example, speech and language, a lot of times Katie Craig, when she has to work with the Monday, Wednesday group, because they're only there on that day, she has like 8 kids that she's servicing in a class like on a Wednesday. Our PT, OT aren't here 5 days a week. So a lot of times we have to give them larger groups of kids to work with. Ability to access the entire big day curriculum, so it's written as a half day curriculum. So a lot of that is being missed. So Heather's teaching it Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. She's not teaching it Monday through Friday. Relationships between staff and between students and students develop earlier and are stronger. So it's hard for them to come to school, so it takes a long time for them to get used to coming every other day and building those relationships with the teachers, the staff that work with them, but also their peers. So I might not see my friend for 4 or 5 days, and then I have to get reacquainted with my friend, and then it just takes that much longer to build those relationships. Great if you want to click on that link on the bottom. These are some area districts and what they offer for 4K.
Yeah, I clicked on it here.
Yeah.
I can
You may open it up.
If we went to the half day, what would those hours be?
So we can run it the same, like they come in with the big kids, 7:55, which they do, and then we run it till 11:10, and then you wouldn't start the next class till 11:50 to 3 o'clock. And we'd still be over the minutes required by DPI for 4K instruction. Okay, sorry.
So we don't anticipate any staffing increases, but there will be some budgetary increases. We'll bring that to the board, more specific information. There's no decisions to be made, we just want to build up the amount of information you're receiving. So the dollars and cents of the busing piece, which is going to be really there may be more expense, but that's going to be the piece in the middle of the day, the morning drop, and then the afternoon pickup. We can use existing services with the 2 bookends, but it's those 2 in the middle of the day. And there's some other pieces as well, which we'll bring in December, about wraparound care and that sort of thing. So I just had a great meeting with the Boys and Girls Club. We had a discussion, actually that just happened a couple days ago. So we had a discussion about this, and our relationship with them is pretty much non-existent at this point, but we're hoping to grow that.
Okay, so this just shows you like Wausau does half days, as does Everest and Stevens Point. Spencer coincides with Marshfield, and they also do half day, but take note, they only do it Tuesday through Friday. So that was another thing that we looked at, is do we want to run our 4K kids just Monday through Thursday? Merrill does half day, and then the smaller districts surrounding us. I talked to the Edgar principal, and they do the every other day, but again, it's based off of the funding for busing, because you would have to bus those kids to take home the morning group and then pick up the afternoon group.
But currently, parents could come and pick up their kids half day if they choose to do so, correct?
Yes.
On the 4K?
Yep.
Right.
What about questions for anybody 4K or?
The only thing I saw as I was looking at the questionnaire on site, Katie, of the parents filling out brand new 4K.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can kind of take some of the handbooks, 'cause some of it wasn't consistent in the verbiage? For example, of course, transportation, I'm gonna look at right away. It just says, would you like transportation? And a lot of the parents aren't gonna read the handbook, so they're gonna say yes, and they're not really eligible. Can you put, by adding the word eligible, who are eligible, And, you know, some don't know that some of the sites we don't transport every day there. So you've got that hang up. So if we can maybe look at some of that, is that easy to change that questionnaire?
Oh, yeah, we can do
Okay.
that, yep.
Okay, great.
So why don't we look at questionnaire for December along with busing expenses and more information like that for no decisions in December. I'm not looking for that. We would probably be looking for some sort of decision based on recommendation in January, just to, so you can, and the community, and everybody can start to get
Right.
the information about this.
You want it out there too.
I do. I do very much. I do very much. And I visited the sites a few times. I'm looking to get out to the sites more. So we've also put a budget out there as well in order to support the sites based on needs as much as we can, which has never been done before. So, you know, my visits, I know the visits that I've been to, some I've done more than others. And I've been to the Storybook the one time, and it was interesting to see the sleep thing when I arrived. You know, if I schedule myself like afternoon, I generally know what I'm going to come into, and it's interesting. And I'm not nearly as much as a lot of other people, but I think it's an interesting thing to look at, and it's an interesting thing to consider. But then one of the numbers that prompted me quite a bit to push on this was that 22 outs. That we want to be providing that as much as possible for our own families.
What are we being reimbursed through?
That's at 0.6, right?
Yeah.
Yep, well, we're reimbursed at 0.6 FTE per student versus 0.4 for summer school, and so that's a good question.
And right now, and I can't find the contract right now, but we're paying the childcare centers for that piece, but we are reimbursed for that. When they're open and rolled out, we're sending those funds to another district.
Right.
Funds go out.
Yes.
Do we-
What is the biggest school district that we send to? Think of what you know.
I think so, yeah. I don't
Is
have it.
Marathon there too, or no?
DC Everest
is the big one.
Do we have a number of open enrolled students in for our 4K program?
I had it up, I'll have to pull it up.
We can get all of them. Those are good questions. Why don't we just kind of make a note of those questions?
Okay.
And then start building our December report.
Right.
When is annual enrollment?
It starts in February.
February, so decisions in January.
Right.
So, just so I'm clear, you're advocating for 5 days a week of providing?
Well, if
like-
so this is a schedule for the half-day AM and PM, and if Brady flips one more page, we also put on, again, as discussion, what a 4K half-day Monday through Thursday would look like, and why would we want that. Again, we have Rochholt and your Marshfield Spencer districts doing that. That allows that professional development for our staff, so like Mrs. Trachty, the majority of our teachers all get prep, like 60 to 80 minutes. K-12, she gets 0 because she's
Well,
with the kids.
If they get outside, but like right now with winter dressing, I maybe get 5 because they don't always get dressed very quickly, so yeah.
And just to build that community between the 4K outreach sites and then our district, to have them come together on a Friday to do professional development would be wonderful. The second bullet is IEP meetings. So we wouldn't have to have staff come in and, you know, sub for her or other personnel that we have at 4K, they could come to the IEP meetings. And then we really like the idea of having parents doing their family outreach on those days, because just morning, afternoon activities, she does that, and other sites do it as well during their school day, their instructional day, so.
Is there any way or I know we're kind of in a crunch for time as far to get the survey out, if they'd rather have the 5 days and do that, or kind of get a general from the community, because that's who you want the children in the district, and you want to give them what they want or need, instead of setting it up as, 5 days and then, I really wanted the 4, or vice versa.
Yeah, but we don't necessarily even know who these kids are prior to registration for this, right?
You have a good, I think, don't you?
They've never registered with the school before, that's their first.
Ask me like 3 weeks in August.
Well, why don't we do this?
And that is a great idea, but that's really hard to do,
Okay.
because
It is,
Um,
it is, that one.
Why don't we do this? We definitely have some questions to answer for the board. And we'll put together another report, a 4K report, discussion only, no decision, for December. But I think in my discussions with Mrs. Caldwell is that we're leaning toward half days, 4 days a week as a recommendation. Just based on a lot of the information I'm hearing about, there's a lot more positives that way. So we wanted to start with a lot of information, so there's no decision and no rush to judgment or anything. But there's been a lot of work put in on this, and even with convincing me, which is part of it, as well. But I'm seeing a lot of positives with this direction. But let's bring another report back to the board, and if there's questions that we didn't get out, because I've got a list here. If there's others, shoot me an email, and we'll get it. We'll look at it.
It will be a very important time frame. Just going back to what Pete had asked, when Christy creates the survey that goes out to where the 4K parents sign up right now, that will probably remain the process for at least this year. We're looking at student online enrollment district-wide, but that won't be probably ready for this. So the importance of that February 1st date from the parent side, we just have to be cognizant of that, because that again could affect enrollment, because I can guarantee you people are lining up at the door, the digital door on that morning to start choosing.
Yeah, which is why I'm not sure we have another month where we can have discussion and have a decision made on what 4K is gonna look like in January, because when's our board meeting in January?
It's Monday. It's a Monday because of the state education convention.
Okay, so we'll make a decision on what 4K is gonna look like a week before people can start registering for 4K. Like, I would hate to have parents be like, what's 4K gonna look like in Mosinee? Oh, they haven't made a decision yet. Well, let's start making plans to go elsewhere. So I would encourage us to have a robust discussion in December and make a decision on what it's gonna look like then, unless I'm viewing this wrong.
No, that would be great.
All right,
And the
we'll move
district's
forward with that.
Directors are on board, I met with them this week, individually asked them, they're on board. It would not affect Head Start because they go 5 days a week, full days, no matter what, so.
I do have one more question though.
Sure.
If we do the 4 half-days, how many hours do they get in? I mean, if we need 87 and a half, how many hours?
That's outreach.
So with that, we still have enough instructional minutes for the whole year, if we did it 4 days a week, the half days. The 87.5 is the additional outreach hours for parents and families, so that's 2 different things.
Oh, okay, got it.
And I can bring that in December, so you can see if you'd like the minutes for that.
We're meeting as a whole admin team, is it next Tuesday or next Wednesday? They don't know this yet, but this is one of the things on the agenda. So for us to get this hammered out, along with the calendar, right, which is also on our agenda, like overall district calendar. We're gonna need to look into in the next.
Yes, so come visit, that's our last month,
That'll be
sorry.
in January.
All right, wonderful, thank you.
Thank you very much, great job, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 14D, discussion, transferring money to Fund 46.
Yeah, I brought this up just as information. I wanted to update something from the board retreat. So our board retreat, there was specific information about transferring money to Fund 46. So there's no decision to make about moving money today, okay? What I wanted to do was update the board from discussions that have had since our board retreat in July or August. It's been a few months now. So, so we're settled at a 34% fund balance roughly right now after the final budget was approved. So we're bringing full information back. So we talked about fund balance. We have a policy in place now. So one of the things, paying for one-time expenses. And I just put a reminder in there that Fund 46 is one of several educational funds where we can choose to put money. The major difference with this fund is the money's put in it and then limited to only be used for capital improvements. This goes back to Mr. Barnes's comments with regards to Fund 80. But we'll stay on 46. For example, roof caves in and we need a roof, and the money could be used for that. But if someone wants a raise, And this is an important difference, right? Think of the staffing charts and the pie charts. That if somebody wants a raise and we've moved money to Fund 46, you can't give people raises out of Fund 46. It's illegal. All right? So before the board is asked to make a decision, which we're not looking for now, but that'll be something coming in the future likely. So once the money goes in, we can only use it for very specific purposes. And the fund isn't active until April of 2020. So we don't really need to make a decision until April.
I have a question on your
Yes.
hypothetical.
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
if said roof was not on the capital improvement plan? Could you use Fund 46 to pay for that then?
I believe we would, the DPI doesn't make us send them additional capital improvement plans. I think I was talking to Steve, we need to make sure that the things that we want to do, are on that capital improvement plan. So I would think that would have to, we would put it on there, fix the roof.
So you can update your.
Yes,
That's what I was
you do, you
wondering.
keep it, yes.
If we had an approved one and then we had an emergency,
Yep.
oh, too bad that roof wasn't on.
That's actually a great question and why I brought this up. So this is word for word from our board retreat, but with updated information because there'll be decisions in the pipeline. There's no reason really for the board to make a decision before April. Because that Fund 46, we can't use it until the end of that, until after April of 2020. So really the decision point for the board is actually very good timing. So the board we'll know a lot about our budget, how things are actually working out. We're gonna know in May, all right, we have $250,000 in supply or something like that. And the board can make a decision about that and say, yes, we're gonna do that with this or more. All right?
Thank you.
No problem. Other questions about Fund 46 and that piece?
Okay.
Okay.
Discussion and possible decision, policy 8510 wellness revision. This is when we did not.
This was, yeah, and when I was scanning through this is one that has to do with caffeine,
Right.
right? So,
What, you don't want caffeine with elementary?
no, this has to do with law. This has to do with the law. When this policy came into place, caffeine was illegal. We couldn't sell it as a school in the high schools. Well, that law has changed. So this policy, J, is the only change. Products containing caffeine will not be available for sale during the school day at the elementary and the middle school as defined above, because that's still the law. But it allows it in the high school, right? So we don't want to restrict ourselves where the law is no longer consistent with our policy, all right?
So moved.
I'll second it. Okay, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Kelly. Further discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion will carry. Okay, never mind. Okay, one no. Moving on, item F, discussion and possible decision, residual balance transfer?
Yep.
Remaining science edition fund. Oh, this is what we talked about last
Yeah,
time.
we had talked about this. So we put a lot of discussion into this in the last meeting. And Michelle and I have talked, we've even discussed it with the DPI and we think it's very important for the board to have a vote about this. Our recommendation is option 2. You can certainly choose option 1. This has to do the retirement of the science debt, and it's $298,000 a year for 4 years, so over 4 years. So it's over $1 million of debt that I'm recommending we retire so that we don't pay the defeasance fee. So essentially, we are set up to do option 2, but we can certainly do a budget adjustment. I want to be clear that we can do a budget adjustment if you choose to do option 1, right? So you're not restricted just because we're ready from our last meeting to do option 2. The board has full, you can vote however I don't want you to feel like you have to vote a certain way.
What you saving?
That you're saving the amount of money, $298,000 a year in debt payments. So instead of, we're not gonna,
The payments.
298,000 a year for the next 4 times. So that's approximately 1.2 million. So it's 1.2 million we do not have to take out of the 10 fund to pay debt payments. That is our recommendation. To not.
Could go into fund raise. I'll make a motion to, for option number 2, debt retirement.
I will
as
second
stated.
I will second that option.
Okay, so we have a motion by Matt and a second by Peter to do option 2 for the debt retirement. Any other questions? Discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry. Item 15, other reports, WASB, Kelly.
Okay, that is me, and I apologize, I grabbed the wrong one, but we have the big state convention in January of this year, and as David said, all of us are going at some
I
point.
think everybody but
Except
one.
me.
Yeah,
'Cause I
everybody,
think we're taking my son to college at that time,
Yep.
so.
so I
That'll
think,
be that might be a first.
so I think 8 out of 9, so I'm excited
Now
about
I
it.
feel bad.
Well, I'm just probably
Give 'em a
only
card.
maybe 4 days.
Right, and several board members are
Not the full.
not for the full time, but I'm excited about the number and the conference looks really good. So rooms are booked, now it's just a matter of booking meals and doing some stuff like that. So I'm excited about it. Michelle's gonna be there as well, and as is Steve.
Steve, yes.
So Steve and Michelle and myself.
Okay, that's all I have for the WSB report.
Item B, CISA 9, Mike.
Big read, 2.5 pages.
Okay. All right, future agenda items. This time, is there anybody that would like to bring something forward for next month's agenda besides what we
I'd just
discussed?
like to bring up the parking in front of the Trustee Center again. I visited it the 3rd, 4th time over the last year. It's always, sooner or later, there's gonna be an incident where the police or somebody has to get in with fire trucks, and it's always, I know that Steve did a good job marking it, and all the marking signs are gone. And, on the
You're
pavement.
talking within that sentence.
Interesting you should bring that up. One thing I
Thank you.
neglected to mention from the finance
Yeah.
meeting was a discussion on the use of the wading pool and the $300,000 it's gonna cost to upgrade it and have it be functional moving forward. So we will at some point be being brought a decision on what we're gonna do with the wading pool and get some data on how often it's utilized. And the alternative would be a 50 parking spaces they figure they could put in if, this is crazy, but my phone is ringing into my hearing aids, so.
48 parking spaces.
With that,
38?
So if 48 parking spaces, because you would combine, so the architect or the firm, what they drew up was a combination of the current wading pool, the Kresge Center, the circle drive that we call it, and then a little bit of the green space that exists right in front of the high school behind the auditorium would be 48 spots.
So I think your future agenda item, let's get it on the board agenda. We're ready to have a full discussion about that. We're actually very ready. The timing couldn't have been better for that recommendation for future.
Funny, got grandkids that can use it, now you're gonna get rid of it.
That's what I was gonna say, now they're gonna get rid of the
Corey was
pool.
out here, we're gonna fill up
You
with cement.
got a hose and a wading pool in the backyard. You don't even have to walk in.
For those parking places, you have to give up the big pool.
You never found the sign.
That's a board, that's a board decision, it's a board decision.
Not on the
Park in
agenda
the
tonight.
pool, whichever one you
Yeah,
prefer.
It's
later,
gonna-
that's coming later. Okay, any other future agenda items?
What was the total cost of the houses being demolished and flattened out?
We can get that number. I don't have that right now.
Some
But I
people
know,
heard me last week, and I just,
but I know that I was at Habitat for Humanity last night with the house dedication that the school district was involved in. I know they were very thankful to the district because they actually came in and saved us north of 50 grand because we allowed them to take things out that we didn't have to go in and demolish. So the Habitat for Humanity, so I'll get that number.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Item 17, moving into closed executive session. Okay. We have a motion by Matt and a second by Peter. Roll call vote, please.
Barnes,
Yes.
Bauman, Lewis, Gorman,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kaiser, Mansville, Ziegler.
Yes.
Oh, yes. All right.
Bye, break, everybody, thank you.
Every time every single,
Thank you. We got a lot of work to do.
And I know, I don't know if you got that one. Oh, well. Right now, you get
And I know it's gonna be like, as a near the end. If
I
can find out
yes.
relative
That was a
to
good meeting.
that transfer will take one, could I get it transferred Monday? Is it too late?
No, I didn't.
You know what I mean? I mean, is there a way that if one of the boards to do it in here, could I have?
Yes or no, but I was thinking the same.